Hi, this is Mr. Mike for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center with another episode of Dino-A-Day. Well, it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys watching every episode, sharing them on Facebook, and then watching them on YouTube at Mr. Mike Sgrignoli. So let's jump right into it. Today's animal is called Deinocheirus. Now, yesterday we did a report on Deinonychus. Similar sounding name, but vastly different animals. Deinocheirus, as we discussed yesterday, dino, the first part for Deinonychus means terrible. So Deinocheirus means terrible hands. This thing had gigantic hands, and in fact, the hands were really the only thing we knew about for a long time. It was discovered in 1965 in Mongolia, and it took a couple of years, around 1970, that they named it Terrible Hands. And the reason they named it Terrible Hands is take a look at these things, and then I will show you the scale of what it actually looked like in person. These were gigantic, terrible hands, huge, about 8 feet from the tip of their claws to the shoulder girdle up here. So, yeah, 8 feet, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, from there the whole way up to here. As a comparison, the animal compared to us was about this size. A big thing. Safari made a great model of this animal, and I'll show you that. Unfortunately, I only have a picture of it because I don't have it on hand. But you can see the quote-unquote terrible hands here, big claws. We did not know what the head, body, legs, tail looked like for quite a long time. Until around 2013, when they went back to the original site in Mongolia and discovered some more bones. They discovered 2 more species. Unfortunately, these the sites where the bones were discovered had been poached. We had some nefarious folks show up and take the skull, take the feet, take the claw, and then smashed up some of the remaining fossils. And then they put them on the black market to sell. And it was only by a lucky chance that a paleontologist later noticed some particular bones in the collection of a private dinosaur bone collector and made some phone calls, and they discovered that this in fact was the missing pieces of the Deinocheirus that actually belonged to Mongolia. So it all came together, but it took quite a while. Deinocheirus is an ornithomimid, which is a fancy word for saying bird or ostrich mimic. It was very bird-like, covered in feathers, had a beak, duckbill beak with no teeth in it. So as a result, probably ate fish, probably ate plants, and the reason we know that is it had gastroliths, which we talked about before, which is those belly stones that were swallowed whole by animals, still done today. And those bones would grind together and help pulverize the plant matter. But they also found fish scales in its belly. So we know that it probably was omnivorous, ate a couple of different things. Maybe it was just an opportunistic eater. But this thing grew to about 35 to 40 feet long. So this was a big guy. Mr. Mike would come up to about here. It was 14 feet to its hip. So I would come up to about here on it, okay? A huge animal. And it had to be huge because it was trying to defend itself against some very large carnivores related to T-Rex. So what it made up, what it lost in terms of it being a ferocious animal, it made up in terms of it being large and, hopefully could defend itself against these giant things. But yeah, 14 feet to the hip. It also had a very interesting hump on its back. Now, this has been described 2 different ways. It's been described as either almost like a camel-like hump, or it could have been more like a Spinosaurus sail. We don't know at this point, but Deinocheirus was an incredibly interesting animal. And as I say, we didn't know what it looked like for a while because all we had were these terrible claws. And boy, they were big and scary. A lot like a Therizinosaurus that we've reviewed in previous episodes of Dino-A-Day. So By the way, the gastroliths that they discovered in the stomach, they found in one specimen, they found over 1,000. So this animal would go along, swallow rocks, swallow them whole, and it would stay in its belly and help grind up its food. Lived about 70 million years ago, the Deinocheirus. So, fresh off my printer, Deinocheirus, a brand new poem from Mr. Mike. Hopefully someday illustrated by my son Ethan. Deinocheirus, with massive 8-foot arms and claws the likes we'd never seen. It's clear the beast that owned them would be nasty, big, and mean. And this is what the thinking was for nearly 50 years. But when the facts are then divulged, the riddle disappears. The Deinocheirus arms were found in 1965. It had to be quite terrifying when it was alive. They took some time and then eventually they hatched a name. It meant its hands were terrible, designed to harm and maim. But as the bones were studied, it began to be real clear this wasn't some huge, gruesome carnivore that we had here. Of course, the Deinocheirus was enormous next to us, but there are more compelling facts we really must discuss. His mouth was big, admittedly, but not designed to chew on smaller, tasty dinosaurs like meat eaters would do. Oh no, it's more duck-billed, and so it hadn't any teeth, but it was great to snag a fish, a fern, or a luscious leaf. What's more, upon his back there stood a sail or fatty hump. Until we do more research, let's just call it some weird bump. And we are positive that there were feathers everywhere. They covered every inch, and on his tail, we think they'd flare. The mystery of how this beast appeared has now been solved. But it looked rather bleak because some poachers were involved. You see, the site where it was found was ransacked and disturbed, which left paleontologists dismayed and quite perturbed. But with some work, eventually, the skull was given back, along with other crucial bones they couldn't find or track. The Deinocheirus at one point was certainly obscure, so aren't you glad you finally have met this dinosaur? The Deinocheirus by Mr. Mike for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Every day we do this live on Facebook, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so please tune in again tomorrow. It's facebook.com/MLCkids. And if you'd like to review any of the previous videos, just go to YouTube and look up Mr. Mike Sgrignoli, and you'll find them all there. So thanks again. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for watching. Let's do it again tomorrow. So for Deinocheirus, this is Mr. Mike saying, have a great day.